Now the only thing I couldn't find online for this job in particular was an information about this C-clip. And I didn't know how to get it out or that it was even there, and ended up bending it. And this, you can only get it at the Ford dealer, and it's $100 for a little kit that includes this. The only way to get it. So now that it's apart, I was able to figure out how it fits in there to hold the bearing nut, the bearing retaining nut on there. There's a little notch in the top, and I'm gonna right now bend this back because I'm not paying $100 for a new one of these. So I'm gonna bend this back. I'll show you how this little C-clip that I sort of bent back into its shape. No, it won't be perfect, but it'll work. There's these notches on the bearing retaining nut you can see on the inside. And just to show you and to help bend it better before I put on the bearings, I'll put this nut on. And it's hard to see, but there is a little notch in the top in which this C-clip perpendicular piece here, where it's bent 90 degrees, slides in. And it slides into one of those notches on the inside of that nut. So once you torque it down, I'll show you, torque it down to I think 50 foot-pounds, and then back it off 90 degrees, and then you'll slide this into one of these notches. And then there's a little lip on this nut that this fits into. And you can see I bent it back pretty close, but not perfectly. And what I did on the other one was just tap it so it fits in and takes that shape again. And so once the bearings are on, you put this in and then slide that in, and that's what locks it. And that's the only thing I couldn't find online information on. So to pull it out, I imagine you would just use some needle nose pliers, reach in and try and pull it straight out. So I greased up the shaft on which the rotor and bearings sit. And I will slide this on. And then the outer bearing. And now the bearing retaining nut with the grooves. And this is where you'll need this large 2 3/4 inch socket. I read somewhere that turning it while you tighten it suits the bearing a little better. Alright, and then torquing it to 50 foot-pounds. again while spinning it. And then I read you go back 90 degrees, so it's torqued to 50 foot-pounds. Just loosen it, not 40 degrees, 90 degrees. And now it's time for this C retaining clip. So there's a groove on top of the shaft, and there's also grooves on the inside of that bearing retaining nut. You gotta either loosen it or tighten it slightly so that the two line up and you can slide that pin in. Alright, I think I went past it. 50 foot-pounds, back 90 degrees. Now there's that little hole, and it slides in there. I gotta loosen it a little bit more. I think it's best to have the groove on the inner side of the nut to be on the far left of that groove. That way this sits in best, it seems. And I bent it so it fits in the little lip inside that nut. And some light tapping, just because it's not perfect. There. It's in there perfectly. Saved $100 on that piece. Off the hubs, I'm assuming. Now the next piece is the piece that engages and disengages the four-wheel drive when you lock the hubs, I'm assuming. Now I had on the other side, I had to move the whole wheel back and forth so that the shaft in there, see, there we go, slides in. Now there's this weird clip. This is the first time I've seen it. And I may even have removed it wrong and may have put it in wrong, but it's the first time I've seen one of these. It's like a spring almost. And the way I got it out was pulling it out in a circle so that it threads like it threads on a screw. And I'm imagining to put it back in is just the opposite. There's little grooves on here there's a groove on the inside of the outer wheel, and there's notches on this tooth bearing piece, and so you can slide it in one of these notches and start turning it. That slides in pretty easy.